Weighing the pros and cons to supersize your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Today we're talking about the idiom, the expression, pros and cons, and weighing the pros and cons. This expression, like so many others lately, the actual origin of it is uncertain, but it's been around since at least the 16th century. Pro comes from the Latin word meaning for or in favor of. Con comes from the Latin word contra, which means against or contrary or opposed to. It ties in with the philosophy of practical reasoning from the Greek philosopher Aristotle. It's suspected that that's where it got its origins, but it reminds us that whenever we're making a decision or a choice or deciding what to do in our business, as well as growing it as a whole, we need to have great decision-making tools and strategies that we use in order to decide what is the best thing for us to do now. In this year's annual challenge, the Get Your Goals annual challenge, today we're focusing on spiritual well-being this month, but we're talking about the A in something called the SOAP framework, which I've been sharing for a couple of years. It's just a decision-making framework that talks about how do we fill the gap between where we are and what we want, which is what goal setting is all about, right? Here's where we are. Here's what we want, the goal we want. How are we going to get there? One of the things we need to do is decide what action we need to take based on the options that we brainstorm or alternatives so that we can determine how to start moving toward the thing that we want, because usually things aren't achieved in one fell swoop. So I'm curious today, what is your favorite or most used decision-making tool? We've talked about a lot of them over the years, and as a over quarter century quality manager working in the quality field, these are right up my alley. Decision trees, SWOT analysis, Pareto analysis, cost benefit analysis, decision matrices, decision analysis software, all of those things. And as I've been doing these challenges, I've added and pulled from my other areas of my life and experiences and added some that I share all the time as well. The plus or minus one that, I learned from my dad when I was a little girl. Hey, what are all the advantages to doing this one thing? What are all the disadvantages to doing it? And that writing them down helps you to see clearly what is the best course of action right now. There's the head, heart, intuition. I definitely have talked about that before, where we need to consider the facts in the case, the how we feel about it, as well as our gut instinct, whether we think it's the right move or not. Because in my personal experience, anytime I have ignored my intuition, even though the other things all looked good, I've ended up making a mistake. So I try to honor that these days. And then today I actually shared one that I call the urine analysis, and I have a wonderful graphic for that, where we look at something and we decide, when it's not upside down, if it's urgent, what resources are required, if it's important, necessary, and what energy and effort is required. And I usually grade those on a scale of 1 to 10, and we'll put the different alternatives here and then grade each one. And every time I've ever used that, it's specific enough to separate the alternatives from one another, especially when we're comparing unlike things. They always say apples to oranges. It's hard to compare apples to oranges because they're very different. They're both fruit, but they're very different in what they offer us for a solution. The same is true of pretty much anything we're looking at. There's a lot of different ways to get where we want to go, and we want to analyze those alternatives so we can act today as quickly as possible to keep moving forward toward what it is that we want. So share in the comments below, what's your favorite decision-making tool or way to analyze alternatives or options. And I wish you an absolutely fantastic day. Of course, be with you tomorrow.